I'm always learning and thinking about what it is really that helps people with human design and what it is I want to teach them. And one of the things that is really important to me is to understand that you are uniquely you,
Mhm.
right? There's only you living this expression, even though there are overarching traits and whatnot that people have, but your expression of it is yours. So, it got me thinking about how we talk about the gates, and I am guilty of it too, of saying this means this about you.
Mhm.
And I realize that when I make just statements like that, or even believe certain things like that, it is still kind of a little bit limiting. Human Design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, your Human Design guide.
And I'm Haley, on this journey with you to uncover the power of human design.
Together, we're here to explore how embracing your authentic self is the ultimate path to a life of more freedom and fulfillment.
Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, hello and good day, Haley. How you doing?
Good day.
Formally, I'd like to formally welcome you to today's episode. Good to see you again.
Mm-hmm.
And before we started recording, we were talking about our different experiences, and it's no wonder people in this country have so many confusing ideas about what's real and what's not real for many reasons. But we're discussing the fact that, I have a beautiful spring-like summer almost day here, and you are experiencing snow and
Yes.
slush.
Well, yesterday was snow. It's sunny and supposed to be warm, but still, it's like wildly different.
Especially, spring really brings it out in this country, doesn't it? Because it's like we're talking about some places are unfortunately experiencing fires or flooding or tornadoes and even ice storms, and you have snow and I have humidity. I mean, that sounds terrible, right? Like, oh, my big natural disaster is humidity. It's not.
For now.
I mean, my biggest thing right now is I've had to change where I park my car because I normally park it under the giant maple tree in my front yard. Maple? Is it maple? Yeah.
Or is it oak?
No, it's definitely not an oak. It's got the little helicopters. These are maple trees. And And
we're not botanists.
No. Arborists.
See,
Arborists,
I don't
trees,
even know the
right?
right word. I don't know.
And so I don't have all those little seed pod things in my car. But anyways, that was a tangent. So we started talking like we always do. We kind of warm up the chops before we come on, get stuff out of the way. Yes. But you wanted to share something. You started to share something with me about your splenic authority. I said, hold it. Let's tell the story on air so I can hear what you have to say about playing around with your definition or whatever. So go for it.
Okay. So like a week or two ago, I think I went to the eye doctor and they gave me some new prescriptions and they gave me some contacts to try. And then I also got new lenses in my glasses. And first of all, on my glasses, I did not get the anti-reflective coating. It's horrible.
Bad idea.
So that's one thing I want to get resolved. But also with my glasses, it's like the edges, like around the edges of the actual lenses, the vision is kind of like warped and like it's not great.
Yeah.
And so I called the eye doctor about that. And I was like, I think I want to order contacts. And I also have these issues with my glasses. And she's like, okay, well, we'll schedule you an appointment for Monday for the doctor to relook at my vision just to see if it's recheck things and see if what they can do. And she's like, do you want to go ahead and order the contacts? And I was like, yeah, sure, we can go ahead and order the contacts. Like, I think I'm pretty good with those. And she's like, all right, let me check if we have them in stock and in the office. And I was like, okay. And so she comes back and they have them in stock. And she's like, you can either come and pick up the contacts today. It was Friday afternoon. I think I called them. She's like, we're open till 5 or whatever. You can come in and pick them up today, or you can come in and pick them up Monday. And when she said that, I like paused for a second. Then I was like, okay, thank you. Like, I'll thanks for that. And she's like, I have them set aside for you. So whenever you want to come in and get them, I was like, okay, cool. And so then I hung up with her and I have an appointment scheduled for Monday. And so I hung up and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, because I already had some errands I was going to run. I was like, I'll just go ahead and go over to the eye doctor and pick up my contacts and then go do my other errands. And then I'm like kind of sitting with it for a second. And then I go and like get socks on and getting ready to leave. And I was like, what did my spleen say? I was like, because I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm like, so I like just stood there for a second and I like thought back and I was like, I had literally in my mind, I was like, what did you say? And I like sat and I just like was silent for a second. I was like, what did you say? And I was like, I think it was a no. I was like, that hesitation, like, I was like, it felt not right to do. And I was like, I think that was my spleen talking. And so like, I haven't gone and picked him up because I'm like, I don't want to get my contacts and then they go and change something with my prescription when I go back on Monday. So I was like, I just won't go pick him up. I'll just wait till Monday. And I was like, I think that was my spleen talking.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it is hard to suss out. And a lot of times, like what you said, you think it is, but a lot of times you don't know until later. Like in hindsight is when you're like, I should have listened. Because in the moment, yeah, definitely your mind's like, well, it makes sense because I want to get them and I'm going by there and it seems ridiculous not to do it, right? So we'll have to get an update with that later on to see if that works. I kind of have a similar story I was sharing with you. I won't go into all the details, but as far as splenic hits, it's not my authority, but I do have a defined spleen. And so I have a heavily defined spleen with lots of gates, like 5 out of 7 gates, I think it is. And so I had the same thing of like, I had been waiting to hear from mechanic for a part to come in for my car. And then they were going to call me to schedule the appointment. But long story short, when your dad ordered the part, they had already scheduled me an appointment far off into April, just computer things they had to do in order to make the system work to get them to order me a part. I had to have a scheduled appointment. And so they said, disregard that. Just when it comes in, we'll still call you. And it was Thursday afternoon when I was like, it's been a week. The first time I talked to a guy, he said it might take 3 or 4 days to get a part. So I was like, I mean, literally, like you said, out of nowhere, I was just like, I should call them. Maybe they forgot about me. Like, or maybe they saw I had an appointment scheduled, so they didn't call me. And sure enough, I called and turns out that was pretty much the case. There was other factors going on with the dealership. They had just been bought by another dealership and there was a lot of confusion in their computer systems. And when he called, because I've been waiting on this part to fix the air conditioning in my car so that I can make the trip up to Ohio to go see my dad, because he's 86 and he's been having some health issues and I haven't seen him in a year. So I want to make sure I get up there, but I'm definitely not going to drive 800 miles without air conditioning because it's noisy for one, and it's not safe because you can't regulate the inside temperature of your car and it causes foggy windows and shit like that. And it's noisy. So it was interesting. So I've been like, the window has been shrinking of when I think I could go, because I was trying to go before you got here and lots of different things. And so when I had that hit, I said, okay, I'm going to call. And they said, oh yeah, we do have it. And then they said, can you get here today or even tomorrow? We can get it put in. And I said, well, what about tomorrow, Friday? They had nobody scheduled for service on Friday at all. They're like, you can come anytime and we can do it. And I was like, really? That never happens. That never happens. And so we said, your dad tried to put some doubt in my head. What'd you call him? Supporting role?
I said the role of the mind is being played by daddy.
Yeah, because he's like, well, that's not good. They have nobody on the books. They just got bought by someone else. Do they have problems? Did all their mechanics leave? And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? This is a good thing. Like, they said they could get it done like tomorrow. And sure enough, I went up. I got there at 8. and they fixed that. And another thing, it was a little bit cheaper than they said it was going to be originally.
Nice.
And I was out the door by noon and had lunch at a wonderful Vietnamese place that I really like. It was a wonderful meal. I was just like, this is what listening to intuition looks like. So hopefully, same for you.
Mm-hmm.
The result may be, well, there was something that wasn't quite right or may need to be adjusted, maybe. We'll see. We'll have to
I'll have an update next time.
make a little note for an update on that, but that's a good point. So that's just a little aside. It's not really on topic with what we're going to talk about today, but who cares? So it kind of is. I mean,
we've been talking about conditioning and all of that, so
yeah,
it's a little life thing.
So one thing when I was thinking about what we could be sharing and talking about next, we talk a lot about gates here. We talk a lot about the energies of the gates because we've kind of fallen into this area where we're doing the transits and discussing gates a lot. And I was thinking about it the other day because when we do the updates and everything, we do talk about sometimes the high or low expressions of these gates and everything. And I know that we have said that we're not static people. Like we have things happening all the time. So the expressions can change about these gates. But, and I think about how they talk about gates in human design, because there's a lot of work around gates and human design people doing, especially in marketing and business and branding lately. I mean, it may be just what I'm seeing because of the algorithms, but it's like, this is what is and we even do it in the transits. Like, this is the energy expressing, and if you have this gate, it means this. And as I'm always learning and thinking about what it is really that helps people with human design and what it is I want to teach them. And one of the things that is really important to me is to understand that you are uniquely you, right? There's only you living this expression, even though there are overarching traits and whatnot that people have, but your expression of it is yours. So, it got me thinking about how we talk about the gates, and I am guilty of it too, saying this means this about you. And I realize that when I make just statements like that, or even believe certain things like that, it is still kind of a little bit limiting. Like saying gate 12 makes you it's a gate of caution, makes you cautious. Well, there's a potential there for that. And I understand that, especially as you're coming into human design, hearing some of these things about the gates, they can feel good, but they can also start to feel limiting because there's 64 gates. You don't have all 64 of them. You have the potential for having 26 of them, honestly, because if you look at both sides of the chart, 13 gates on each side, or 13 positions on each side. It's very rare that someone has all of those different gates. Quite often there's overlapping, but I started thinking about how in a way it's creating more of that personality typing and labels that if you don't have an understanding of the full scope of the themes present within a gate, especially if you have a channel like the 2838, struggle, fighting, and I can't remember what the human design name is for 28. Oh shoot, I forget now. But we know that energy there is often seen as negative, or some of the defining things in cross names, what's the one? Tension, like the cross of tension. Oh my God, my energy is all about just pissing people off. It's
the gate of doubt. It's it's one of my big gates that I have, and it's oh, I have the gate of doubt. It's oh, am I just doubt I have doubt, confusion. Am I just confused? I don't know what's happening, and I just doubt everything and piss people off too.
Right. Right. So I started thinking about, okay, how can we explain this a little bit clearer or just explore the idea of it
Mhm.
that, because I am guilty of saying this is who you really are, right? This is you. But I want to make clear it's a potential of you, right?
Mhm.
It's like it's what you consistently we're talking about defined areas here. We're going to talk about
Mhm.
defined gates specifically
Okay.
because everybody has defined gates. They might not all
Well,
have defined centers. Yeah, you have
yes,
defined
yes, yes,
gates.
yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes.
Everybody has defined gates.
Yes.
You may not have defined centers
Mhm.
or certain channels, but you have gates.
Mhm.
And so those are what we always say is consistent within you, right?
Mhm.
But it popped into my head. Hello, gate 20, gate 43. Here we go. Potential. And this is where I want to pull you in because I know
Okay.
you've talked to me about this before in high
Oh,
school
okay.
when you were learning about it. When you were learning about genetics, DNA.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And so I started thinking about that. It was really just even earlier this morning because I wanted to talk about these gates. But then this came through. It's like, okay, so we talk about human design as your energetic DNA.
Mhm.
Gene Key's work is very specific towards this gate corresponds with this amino acid. Like he goes into a lot of that,
Mm.
like science um, uh, correlations.
Mhm.
I'm not very strong in science, but I looked up, I mean, I Googled the most simple thing about physical DNA. And does it mean that if you have a certain gene, that you actually express it like you're always expressing it or a certain way?
Mhm.
So it brought back to me the basics of genetics, genotypes and
Mhm.
phenotypes. Do you know what those
I
are?
re- I remember the word. So, let's see, genotypes and phenotypes. So I believe phenotypes is like the actual expression of it. Like I think like having brown hair is a phenotype.
Hmm.
And then I guess maybe genotype is more the actual like the foundations of the genes being put together.
Yes, that's pretty good. It's so genotype is the genetic
It's like
makeup, right? Your DNA. It's the potential traits inherited from your parents. So because I the reason and then the phenotype, like you said, is the expression of it. Because I remember you, whether it was homework or whatever, talking about the recessive and dominant traits, the blue
mhm.
hair, brown hair, which when I was looking this up,
Blue
that's the most
eyes,
common.
brown eyes. You said
No,
blue
no, no.
hair,
I was talking
brown.
about well, I don't know if I said blue hair, but I
You
was
did say blue
talking
hair.
whether or not you have brown hair,
Mhm.
whether or not you have blue eyes, that there's the gene, the genotype
Mhm.
for certain for like eye color. But
Mhm.
then the phenotype is how it's actually expressed, which is usually surprisingly you would think, well, blue hair is a fixed trait, but or blue hair, blue eyes is a fixed trait, but it's not. It depends on certain factors.
Mhm.
And so same as okay, so like you and your brother have shared genes because
Mhm.
of us, right?
Mhm.
And so where you came from, but they express very differently. And so, but also it says like, or like twins, you have twins who have the same potential for like height and all this other stuff. That's their genotype.
Mhm.
But, things like nutrition, even in the womb, environment, as they grow older, lifestyle influence, like all these things are what actually influence how that gene is expressed. I also
Mhm.
loved it had the example of like the seed of a plant, right? It has all the same potential, one seed to another. But if you plant one in fertile soil and give it all the right nutrients and water, it's going to be a lot different in how it comes up than one that's in a lot less.
Favorable conditions.
Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting this. All right. This is what I was thinking. And so when you're looking at human design, it's a lot of it's the same way. These gates, especially your defined gates, they reckon or they are like your physical DNA, the genotype. Like these are the potential, but your lived experience, and let's even say there's lots of conditions that go into it, how that particular gate is expressed. Because I was even going back to some of the core foundational teachings by Ra,
Mhm.
um, back in 1991 in the Black Book, the first thing he published about it, talking about, which they don't talk about too much modernly, but we know it's important, the where the gate falls in your chart, like what planet it is being ruled by,
Mhm.
basically, has impact on, of course, how that gate is expressed as well. And so these are all things that are your phenotypes, is how it expresses. Is that, you see where I'm going now?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I do remember you guys sitting there going, well, you can have a big B, little BB.
Working that pundit square.
Yeah, whatever. What's
Well, that's
that?
how you determine. So, quickly, a Punnett square is, in the simplest term, you have 4 quadrants, and you
Mm-hmm.
have, we'll just say, a trait from the mother and a trait from the father. So, let's say eye color,
Mm-hmm.
and you would have, like, if it's a dominant gene, it would be capitalized. If it's a recessive gene, it would be lowercase. And so you just kind of like pair each quadrant with like what it would
Mm-hmm.
be, and that gives you the probability, the
Mm-hmm.
potential of what kind of trait is going to express, what kind of phenotype is going to be expressed.
Yeah. She said quadrant because I only saw like 3 possible combinations. Was like 2 big B, like say B is the letter. Doesn't matter what the letter is.
No, it's 4.
So what's the fourth one?
Because you have a gene. A gene is 2 parts, a dominant. It could be a dominant dominant or a dominant recessive. In this case, capital B, or capital B lowercase b, or
It's lowercase.
lowercase. So I guess there's only technically
3.
3 possibilities, but in that Punnett square, it's a quadrant of 4.
Yeah.
Because if it would be like a capital B lowercase b and a lowercase b capital B are different, are the same. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know.
But a Punnett square was, and it's in the simplest form of a Punnett square. It's 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
I know.
And so it's in those instances, so like let's think about it this way. I guess our part of that expression could be like depending on, say like you have gate, a certain gate, it's also going to be dependent on whether it's on the unconscious side or conscious side, if it's in a defined center or an undefined center, what your type is, like all these things, what planet it falls under within the chart is all the factors determining how this gate is going to express. Plus, the most important part is that you are an individual. And whereas physical DNA is quite almost mechanical, this is a lot more fluid and there's a lot more choice in expressing your energetic DNA than there is. You don't really have a choice if you have brown hair or if you have blonde hair. Well, I mean, you can because you can change it. Eye
Mhm.
color, let's say, that's just
There's
something
color
you have.
context, but
Yeah, that's something you have. You can't
Mhm.
really change that. But so when we talk about human design and gates and all that stuff, like I said, I've been guilty of it too. I mean, gate 1 means you're a creative individual. Well, if I say that to people and they're not really living what they define as a creative life, or they might
Mhm.
say, well, I'm not creative, because their definition of what creativity is like, oh, that means you have to be a painter or a potter or
I think
a
we've had
singer.
this exact conversation about me. I'm like,
Oh, yeah?
you're like, oh, you, because one of my, I think 41, my in the root, kind of have a creative energy, and I'm like, I'm not very creative, and you're like, well, you like to do all these things that are creative, and I was like, okay, I guess I am, but it's like the same thing. I don't maybe label myself as creative because like
Mhm.
I'd see that as someone who can paint or can draw
Mhm.
or like that
Mhm.
kind of those
Mhm.
kind of mediums.
I agree. Yeah. And yeah, I would say gate 19 is sensitive, and or 51 is competitive or aggressive. Like all these things, that the reason we do that is because there's a sense of understanding and comfort in like these short, simple clear definitions.
Well
Like
defined, yeah.
our brains love labels, love being
Yeah.
able to like compartmentalize.
Cert
Yeah. And be like, oh, that means this person's going to be willful. That
Mhm.
means this person's intuitive. This one's got a, defined way of thinking about this or whatever. And there is a certain truth to that. But then you get people who are like, well, that doesn't really describe me at all.
Mhm.
What does that mean? Does that mean the system is flawed? Does it mean it's all just junk? Does it? I don't
Mhm.
know. I mean, we talk about all the time, this is an experiment, right? It's like,
Yep.
this is showing us something, but does it really mean that you have to follow it in a sense? Or take it on as truth? Because we're trying to the system is trying to show us how we're all different, right? It's science of
Mhm.
differentiation, shows you individuality and choice and all this other stuff. But then if we're putting these definitions on what everything is, which is also the reason why I think I don't like to talk about like the variables, the arrows on the chart and all that stuff, because
Mhm.
I feel that becomes way too prescriptive. It becomes way too limiting on someone to say like, well, this is your design, this is your potential, but if you're not living in this environment and you're not following this way of like
Or
eating or
yeah, I was gonna
studying
say
or
if you don't
learning,
eat this way, it's like you're not doing it right. You're
then
just
forget
wrong.
about it,
Yeah.
which can be very disempowering because not everybody has the access to, the ideal environment. And I know there's a lot, like, don't come at me. I know there's a lot of variance even around that, like what you define as environment. But I know as humans as why a lot of us come to this system is looking for answers. And if you feel that you are not living up to your potential or you're not living out what you could be doing, and you see something like, well, I have a shores environment, but I live in an apartment building somewhere, that's the reason why I'm not living up to my potential. And it becomes these crutches, or even saying, like, well, I would really like to, say, run a marathon, but I found out I'm a projector. I can't do that because I don't have energy. So I'll just give up
Mhm.
on that dream. And that's not what we want to do here. We want to show you potential, show you where you might be getting off track, but also empower you to be and do whatever it is you want to be
Mhm.
or do, because that's the ultimate like gift here, is to show you that you're not like everybody else, so you don't have to follow all the rules, and your rules are going to look different than someone else's rules, and how to gain an understanding of what your rules or non-rules are, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you feel like you always have to be creative because there's a line 1, or even like you said, gate 41, these kind of things, and you're not feeling it, then you start to feel, well, I'm not living up to my potential, and so
Mhm.
therefore, I guess I'm just doomed and I don't have much
And I
choice.
need my fainting couch.
Oh, I wish that were still a thing.
I
I
know.
just give up today and I'll just which you can. I mean, we can have fainting couch. So, all right. Okay, so let's see. So we do always talk about how when we are talking about gates, we don't always say it, but I try to remember to come back to it now and then. Of this is the range, basically,
Mhm.
and this is the frequency potential. And so your defined gates are kind of like the radio stations are defined like presets on your radio. They're there, they're on, they're always broadcasting.
Mhm.
But if you're not tuned to that frequency, you go in a tunnel, you lose service. It's like you might be disconnected shortly, but all
Mhm.
you have to do is just tune your dial a little bit to get back into that frequency, right?
It's a very good analogy.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Mhm.
I don't know that it's originally mine, but it's one that works for me. Of like,
It's
I've
very
heard
good.
it. I've heard it also like in Abraham Hicks too, talking about like you've got to get tuned into the right frequency. It's
Mhm.
not that it's not there anymore. It's there. Like you turn off your TV, it doesn't mean that the station stopped broadcasting, or even turning off a lamp. The electricity's still there.
Mhm.
You just have to activate it, turn it back on.
Mhm.
So, okay. So there are, like we said, lots of things that influence what you're expressing, like your type and strategy, your authority. So like there's well, I'll have some examples of some gates later on. Type and strategy, authority, your planetary placements, like we said, the conditioning around you, your relationships, your environments, and your experiences in life, all of these really affect how you're going to express these gates. And so
Mhm.
these, remember, defined gates are consistent potential. And I hope moving forward, I remember to keep hitting that point of you're not locked into one way of expressing
Mhm.
a theme or a gate. So, like some examples. So, like I have gate 5, gate of
Mhm.
rhythm. And that means have consistent access to the feeling, knowing of like natural rhythms, ritual, structured energy. Like that can make me feel really comfortable to have
Mhm.
certain routines. And when it's aligned with what I want to be doing, particularly, that is a great comfort. And it is also something that I know that if I have certain routines or rituals, it helps me stay in alignment with a lot of my energy. And it's when I'm pushed out of my natural rhythm, or if I'm being pushed into rigid schedules by other people, that energy, having access to that gets diminished. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it was making me think you love your morning coffee routine. Like, it really helps set up your day, and when you
Hmm.
were consistently working at the flower shop, I it's weird looking at it, maybe it's not weird, but when I think about it, you had this routine with going into the flower shop, but it was hectic, it was chaotic, you were always seemed to be rushing around, it was still, like, a routine you had with it, but it wasn't one you wanted, so it wasn't flowing, it was more chaotic, like I said.
Yeah, you're right. Like I would know, like, okay, I'm probably going to be working today. Didn't always know what was going to be happening. It was a main contention for working there is like there is the the owner would always be like, "Well, I don't always consistently know when I'm going to be busy." So she wouldn't just like pay someone to be there the whole time and that's their job. It was like,
Mhm,
I need this here and this here. And it got harder and harder, you're right, for me to hold those boundaries because the more she became reliant on me and my sacral, the more I was getting pushed out of my own natural rhythm. You're right. Um, and, and you can become quite, I could become quite a struggle. I became quite stubborn. Like I would intentionally, because I felt
wait
like
till
I
the last
was,
second.
yeah. Or be like, I would wait till the last second, but also like someone else described working there. She was like, well, the last time we spoke, she said that she should be okay, not need me, but I'll let you know, kind of thing. And so by the time it got to like 9 o'clock the night before, she's like, well, I haven't heard from her, so I'm going to take that as a she doesn't need me kind of thing. I'm
Mhm,
off the hook. And then the next day is getting a call from her like, are you coming in or what? And she's like, what do you mean? Like, you said, no, no, there was a miscommunication. Like,
mhm,
I need you here. I don't need you here. It's terrible. But, anyways, we're getting off topic there.
mhm,
So, yeah, I could feel you, might be certain parts of my life that I was not honoring my own rhythm. And so I'm not always expressing the like the more aligned version of that because this 5 is consistency and it is a like there's a consistent natural rhythm to life
mhm.
like
Yeah.
seasons and everything else. It's more consistent rhythm. And that's what I have. I don't have the other end. And so consistency is important to me and that helps me express that energy. And also, it's a sacral gate. And so, I should pay attention to the fact that when I am responding, is it honoring my own like in tuneness with like what feels good and true and natural for my
Mhm.
rhythm, right? So like another one we just recently last week we were talking about gate of shock, gate 51. There's one of
Mhm.
those gates that's like, well, I guess I'm doomed to have shocking things happen to me, or people are going to see me as shocking, or my life is going to always be chaotic and disastrous. I
Mhm.
mean, that's what a lot of people think, I think,
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
think so. Yeah.
It does not carry a good perception around with
Mhm.
it because of the words that are attached to it. And if you're just looking at the words attached to it, the main themes, it can feel disempowering, I think, if you see that um, in your design and you don't really understand the energy of that gate.
Mhm.
It's it's really being having consistent access to courage and initiation, like standing out, being bold. Competitiveness sounds like a bad word, but it's not.
Mhm.
It's this urge to excel and be the best at something and really get your individual nature out there.
Mhm.
And it could be someone who is very much a leader and may shock people, may wake people up, may do things very differently than someone
Mhm.
else. But on the downside of that, if you're, it could also be expressed as just overly competitive or provocative, or
Mhm.
there's lots of other ways that
Almost jabby. I can see it as being
jabby.
jabby
A little bit.
if it's like in the more shadowed
Hmm.
lower side.
Yeah. And it's like, and that could very much be the expression that someone has if they aren't aware. They're basically working against their own energy. Let's say if you are in that instance, if you had that gate, let's say you had the channel 5125 defined. And so maybe you have a defined will, and take it one step further. Maybe you're also another connection to the throat. So you're like a manifester, and you have this energy that initiates and wakes people up, but you haven't known this about yourself your whole life. And when you first see things like words that get put around in human design about like, well, you're shocking, you're competitive, you're aggressive, you're a manifester, you have repelling aura, like all those things could just be like one
Yeah,
reason why you don't
frustration or
be like,
anger.
yeah, you're not going along with that shit. They're like, I am not an angry, repelling person. I'm a very, you might have the whole opposite experience of that because you haven't been um, expressing yourself as you're meant to. Especially, I see manifestors tend to shrink themselves down. Like their inner nature knows that their intention is not to piss people off, and their intention is not to make people around them uncomfortable
Mhm.
and on edge around them. They just as much as anybody else want people to love them,
Mhm.
want people to respect
Accept
them.
them.
Yeah. But if their experience is like, if they've tried living true to their nature, their energy, when they were younger or whatever, what they felt was correct, but were constantly shut down, it may make them a completely different expression of those energies. And quite often it could come out in a more lower expression, which is interesting in the gene keys. This is where I think looking at the gene keys and his body of work is helpful, because he does talk about the shadow and the gift and the city, the high like expression of these gates.
Mhm.
But in the shadow, he nuances it even more to whether it's a reactive expression or a repressive, because you could have a
Mm.
lower energy of something, lower, I even hate using that term, but less aligned, let's say.
Okay.
And it can express as either someone who just, like says, it's a repressed expression of it.
They're like
Somebody,
shut down.
yeah, like they could be, because like in the gate 51, you'd be like, well, the opposite of this empowered version is not always somebody who's negatively aggressive. It can be somebody that is very shut down in their own
Mhm.
power,
Yeah.
who just completely withdraws and has a totally different expression.
Mhm.
And so that's where it's really helpful to understand how these energies not
Yeah.
only are dynamic, but how they can express and flow in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about your head gate, your 64, because that's your sun gate, right?
Six
64.
64 is my earth gate.
Oh, sorry, 63 is your head gate. Your 64
63
is
is.
what 64 is what you have defined 6447.
Yes.
And so I know that this is and since it is in a channel, this is a very consistent uh access point for you. Let's call it. It is an energy that can be consistent, but it is a matter of you understanding how your energetics and your design works, because like you have this access to abstract thinking and inspiration, and an understanding that gate is like it comes from a little bit confusion, because it's trying to make sense of the experience and what has happened and all that stuff. We talk about that, right? And I
Mhm.
know that you're like, "Well," quite often you're like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean
Mhm.
about me? And this is something that has been a struggle as well for me to try to articulate sometimes, because I don't have consistent access to these. It's variable. It changes because I don't have any
Mhm.
of these gates defined, and I don't have the center defined. So when you are following like your strategy and authority, when you are not really trying to force the expression of any of this stuff, that gate is um, creative, has inspired breakthroughs. Um, when you're allowed to just kind of let it process on its own without this pressure from the outside of people to like try to get you to like articulate your ideas right now or make sense of it. Does that line up for you? Like, you
I
don't,
think
I
so.
don't know. But okay, let's say it this way. When you say you've been pondering something or thinking about something, and the more you try to get it to happen, of course it's not going to happen. It can,
Mhm.
or you try to make sense of things or find the pattern of what happened in the past or whatever. And if you feel like you're on a deadline, there's a lot of external pressure. Somebody needs to like come up and make sense of an idea, or somebody's like putting external pressure on you. I'm asking
Mhm.
to have the solution, have it all concrete. No, do you feel that does it feel like pressure to know, to have the answers, to have the clarity of when people, do you ever feel pressured that you have to,
Understand?
yeah.
Ah, in my math class.
Yeah. Well, like if you're given the freedom to just allow it to run and explore, people can see you as having this visionary mindset of, I know visionary is a big word, but like you might be able to see things that other people didn't put together or see before. Yet, if it hasn't had time to marinate and you're trying to rush an idea, that you could appear more scattered or unclear or a little bit
Mhm.
like, what the fuck is she talking about?
Yeah, I do get that a lot, but I think also it's like, because it's so much more of like a visual, like a picture in my head, it's
Hmm.
sometimes much harder if I'm being pressured to like even get any kind of clearer picture in my head. Like it's like and then when I don't have that clear, then just the words do not flow at all to even be able to kind of explain it.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
even sometimes when I do have a clear picture, it can still be very hard for me to express that, like verbally express that and describe what it is I can see in my head. I could see it
Hmm.
perfectly clear in my head, but I don't have I'm unable to explain it well enough for other people to comprehend.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense because you don't have a defined throat. So you have that channel there so that when it does come through, sometimes you have your own understanding, but it can be more difficult or challenging for you to articulate it, especially if um, you're just trying to tell us and we haven't even asked your input, like what you're talking about, because I've experienced that from you. I know you've got something that you can see so clearly and you understand,
I've already had
but
half the conversation in my head with you.
we're like, what? And that, yeah, that comes from, but what I'm saying, that could be that part of that expression of your design of, in that instance, you have an undefined throat and you're a projector, of being recognized and someone pulling that out of you, or even being in the presence of someone such as myself who has a defined throat might make it easier to articulate once you've been asked for that insight and guidance verbally. But it's also something that you could probably over time, if you took the time to maybe write it out and try to get those thoughts out of your head onto paper, eventually you might come up with a framework that, or a way of expressing it that could then be,
Mhm.
accessed by other people. It doesn't always have to be verbal, that
Mhm.
can make it more difficult, I think, because of the undefined throat. But there's nothing from stopping you, if it's a really important idea that you need to get out, to somehow express it on your own that other people
Mhm.
could then benefit from it.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, I have done that for myself to help process problems. Is like
mhm,
there was something I was trying to fix at work one time, and I was like, I could kind of like visualize in my head what I needed to pull where and all of this, but then I literally had to put it on the paper and like see it so that I could really figure out what it is I was needing to do and what kind of formulas I was needing to make. So it was like I was having to put it onto paper for my own further ability to comprehend it.
yeah. And of note, you have all four head or three head gates defined. And so there is seeing the logical, the patterns, like all that stuff, putting it all together. You had to, visual is stronger for you to be able to
Mhm.
see it. So that makes sense. But anyway, so I just wanted to hit on that because I think that the more people understand that, even though this looks like a rigid framework and another prescriptive type of like tool, like this
Mhm.
is how you do it, this is you, and I definitely speak in that language a lot of times because I'm trying to help people see their potential and to give them permission to step into these energies, or to um, shift and refine how it is they are expressing them, because I have the understanding and experience of, I I know that I had thought and behaved in certain ways in my life based on beliefs I held then, but when I changed those beliefs or explored them and then changed them and decided to come at it a different way, things change in the way that you experience life and the way that you personally express yourself. And the reason I love human design so much is because it just makes it a little bit easier to see those parts in yourself. you know this is my potential. Have I been operating out of a more reactive or repressed energy or a more empowered energy? And I don't want to live in this repressed state. I want to feel more empowered. What can I do? And that's where, like, meeting with other people, talking with people, getting chart readings, having someone guide you through your design, like I can do, is to help get you to that point to see, well, for one, give yourself a break and understand that you don't know what you know until you know it. So it's like when you come into this, you know, understanding that all of us are never living our full potential, I don't believe. It's like
Mm-mm.
it's we don't live in a vacuum, we don't live in bubbles. It's like we're constantly being influenced by everything that's happening
Mhm.
around us, and our past experiences are always fighting with our to do something differently. It's
Mhm.
like we're always drawing from the past, and that's our experience, and we try to make meaning of what can happen based on the past, and it just doesn't, it ends up like not creating any possibility and potential because you're all just living the same old story. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. But I want this discussion and the way we move forward talking about this to make sure that we frame this as more of a liberation and of like, you don't have to be a certain way. You have a lot of flexibility in how you express your design. I think that's what I'm trying to get to.
I followed.
And yeah, and you don't have to always be like feeling that you have to constantly embody this like you have to work at
It's
embodying your gates, right? Like
yeah.
it just happens if you pay attention to strategy and authority, like what your natural energy flow is trying to tell you. You were going to say something. I'm sorry, I
I was
interrupted
gonna
you.
say it's never gonna be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all gonna fall down, but it's about getting back up and trying again, and
Mm-hmm.
just keep going.
Yeah, and also not comparing ourselves and our expression of, say, a certain gait compared to someone else's expression of a gait, because it doesn't mean they're doing it better than you, doesn't mean they're doing it the right way, you know, but it does mean that they are an individual just as much as you are, and that's how they decide to express their gait of power or whatever. um and so like I said, your strategy and authority help guide you in how to be more authentic and how those energies are going to express more authentically in you. And it's always going to be different because, like, I have gate 14, someone else can have gate 14, but they're going to be so radically different in how it actually comes out. It's the having the access to sacral energy to gather resources and help you use those resources in pursuit of work that you like to do, or helping point other people in that same direction. It's a lot of that stuff. But it's my sun gate. Someone has that as their like Uranus gate. It's going to be like totally different, you know. It's going to be much more prominent in my life. And even with that expression, this is what helps me too with gate 14, because I quite often feel like I'm not living up to my potential because of this high ideal. There's talk in the whole space about how gate 14 is like the lucky ticket, and the golden ticket, I should say. And you're so lucky if you have this gate, and everybody around you benefits from it. And it's like money, money, money. Everything's just coming your way. Well, it's not always your experience, but it's also like, well, why not? I have to explore or look at, well, why is that not true for me all the time or in the moment? It's going to deal with how I was brought up. It's going to be about how my family thought about work and money and abundance and what my experience has been, and just like all these stuff influence it. But it gives me a beautiful like aspiration or intention of like, well, I do want to be someone that works doing what she loves. It has guided me my whole life. I haven't been doing it, but the older I've gotten, I've seen that this has always been the struggle, really a lot that I've had in my life, and why I just can't seem to follow the path that other people have or be happy in that path. It's like because it
It's not
doesn't
the right path for you.
it's not the right path for me. It doesn't like fill me up. It's not something I love, blah, blah, blah. And so, whereas, yeah, you can make money at it and it can work out, but it's not long term. Um, but I also love seeing this gate uh, in the sense of how it does also empower those around me is also interesting to watch, because I can see, the more I encourage the people around me to follow what they want to do and give them permission to be like, hey, that's cool. If you want to, like, today, like your dad, like, if you feel like you want to just go out and play in your work shed and come up with something new, that's cool. I'm not going to put pressure on you to do anything else. And he's like gotten so creative, and he's like making money in all different kinds of ways now. He doesn't see it necessarily. I mean, he does, but I was just thinking about how in this off season, he's probably brought in nearly half of what he makes as a salary doing like a boat employee, but he's just been
Wow.
like, He's been doing his oyster business. He's been
Making his fire pits.
making fire pits and fire rings and doing this work over here and that over there. He's just kind of following his own. I mean, he doesn't always see it that way. Everything's work to him. But I know that he enjoys doing the more creative things. And so encouraging that, or just encouraging people to, like I told you guys growing up, whatever you do, yes, I want you to have an education and I want you to do all these things, but like never feel that you're stuck in one place. Like I want you to explore things that are interesting to you. And I even did that before I even knew about human design. You know, it was like I never wanted you to feel like you had to be a doctor or be a lawyer. Like I wasn't going to put it on you what you had to be. I just wanted you to make sure that you were happy. I'm glad that you both right now are in a position that you're like taking care of yourselves well. I still haven't figured it out. But I'm glad that when it's not personal to me and I'm not looking at my own faults and my own like anything, it's like it can express itself out to others, which is great. And I'm happy it does that. My work now is to work on myself, but that's what we're doing here. You know, this is me really trying to pull back all the layers on that so that I can express that in my truest and best way. So there goes the generator again, talking about herself most of the time. Interesting.
Well, that's because that's the most experience that you have to
That
express
is
from.
true. That is true. So anyway, so main thing is just realizing that let's kind of release a lot of these like fixed identities we have around our defined centers or defined gates, I should say, to allow us to kind of like feel more into the potential and explore the potential of what that could be. Like you said, what works for you may not work for me. Your expression of it may not work the same as mine. And so just kind of looking at how you look at your gates, say like, and how they express. One example is because, like I said, I have a lot of gates in the spleen defined, and they're like, "Well, you're a really intuitive person." Okay, I've heard that a lot my whole life. I didn't believe it, right? So you can make the statements about yourself, "I am intuitive," but if it doesn't feel right because you don't quite believe it yet, you can say, "I consistently have access to intuitive energy," and I think when you make that little shift to say, I have access to it, I always have access to it, it kind of, I think, opens your mind up a little bit to be like, oh, consistent access. Like you said, you've with your spleen, things like that of like, oh, I know that this is part of me, that I have access to this energy. How does it play out? What does it feel like? What does it look like? It kind of makes your mind more open, maybe.
Yeah.
Possibility.
I mean, when you say like, I have consistent access to it, that like phrasing of access gives it more flexibility. Because if you just say like, I am intuitive, like your example, there are times where you won't feel intuitive. So if you just say I am, it's like, well, I'm not always. So it's like, it feels like I'm being false.
Or in that instance, I am intuitive. What your definition of what intuitive is, like you might think, like me, I always associate it with I'm psychic or somebody who's a medium. And I'm like, I'm not those things. I'm not a psychic medium. So when they say you're intuitive, I'm like, it didn't jive with me. But knowing I have access to it, like you said, is like, oh, so what does it look like for me? What does intuition feel like to me? And not like, because, yeah, when you're using specific words, you already have your own definitions of what those words mean. So you have to like almost redefine them in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like talking about intuition, like same thing. Like to me, I can see intuition as being someone who's a medium, but then I think on things and I'm like, no, I just know what to do sometimes. It's like you can't explain it, but I sometimes just know what needs to be done, or I know that this has to happen. And so it's like I can see instances where I do have intuition, but it's not how I define intuition. So I don't
Mhm.
recognize it.
Yeah, because it just feels natural. It doesn't feel special to you. It's just
Mhm.
like, well, this is just the way I am. But we have put this connotation, myself included, I'm guilty of it,
Mhm.
of, because I even that intuition is something special. Like I've even struggled with putting it in the description what I do. I'm an intuitive guide. It's like, oh, I think people are going to think I have to tell the future. I don't tell the future. I'm not a fortune teller. But when I allow my intuition to flow and have access to it, I didn't realize it was always happening anyhow. I always just thought, well, this is clearly something I see. It's common sense. Why would you do it
Mhm.
this way? Do it this way. But people are like blown away when I say something to them that they're like, how did you know that? I'm like you said, I don't
Mm.
know. I don't think I'm that's that special, but I had it in my head that that was something only special people could do.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I agree. It's how we shape our understanding. So
Mhm.
anyways, so moving forward, let's hope we can keep this conversation alive, which I think we already have. But define gates, consistent access, potentials. It's fluid expression though.
Mhm.
It's not fixed in one expression because none of us are the same. None of us have had the same experiences.
Mm-mm.
And I don't want you to feel that these, even though we call it definition and it's a defined trait, we want this to empower you with knowing you have access to it
Mhm. It's
consistently.
it's defined access.
Yes, the gate's always open,
Mhm.
it's always there. So I would love to, if you guys listening out there, if this helps shift something in you or you had kind of a moment of clarity around maybe a certain gate that you've had that you've struggled with this help, I'd love to hear about it. Of course, you can leave us a comment over on Substack with this where we post this episode and you're like, oh, what's that? Well, go to Substack, humandesignhive.com. It's in the show notes. It's where the podcast lives right now. It's where you can interact with us directly in the posts in the community. We'd love to hear from you about that. And don't forget that we also have a call coming up on the 23rd of this month, community call, where we can talk about this. We can talk about your defined gates. And I think it'd be a fun conversation if we could get together and talk about some of these gates that maybe have, you know, different ideas about what it means to have these defined energies. And also, I'd like to remind you if you would like help walking through your chart and maybe you feel stuck, maybe there are things in your chart that you've been wrestling with, or even in your life, and you don't quite understand why this is happening or what you can do about it, how to shift it. It's kind of my expertise is to be able to look at your human design, look at your life where it is right now, look at where you want to be, what's kind of getting in your way, and really just quickly getting to maybe things that are getting you stuck, hanging you up, helping shift that a little bit and better embody how you're meant to function. That's kind of what I do. So you can book a session with me, a one-to-one session where we can go through that together. And I would love to work with you in that regard because it's what I love to do is to
Mm.
help people make those like shifts and aha moments and see what it is you do with your wonderful design. I get very excited. So, anyways, okay, so it's the end of the episode, Haley. So you know what that means. What time is it?
The incarnation cross of the week.
Woo, woo. I always feel like I say woo woo. Yes, it's time for the incarnation cross of the week, where we kind of give a little synopsis of one of the many, many, many different incarnation crosses there are, which are comprised of what, Haley?
The sun and earth on both your conscious and unconscious sides.
Correct. The gates, how they're
Yes.
expressed, because it's a large part of your expression here. Just as we talked about the gates, there being a little fluidity here, there is the same in these crosses because they are defined energies. So they are consistently broadcasting out to other people. There's going to be a higher or lower for sure, but what we like to focus on here is the full potential of these energies coming out into the world, expressing, and how they can positively impact those around you. And so there's like 192 of them. We're trying to get through them, like not like it's a mission or anything, but like I don't know, I just think it's a fun little segment to end on it. Like you said, it's a little positive way to end the episode, right?
Yeah.
Is
It'll feel good.
your potential. Okay. So this week we have the right angle cross of service 3. Okay. So it is on the personality side, the right side of your chart, black numbers. Your sun would be in gate 18, correction. And your earth would be in gate 17, opinions. And then on the left side of your chart, the design side, the unconscious side of your chart, the sun is in gate 52, gate of stillness. And the earth is in gate 58, gate of joy.
So we have correction, opinions, stillness, and joy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
It's an interesting mix.
Correct. Okay. So if you were born under the right angle cross of service 3, you're here to explore the patterns and archetypes that shape our daily lives, uncovering their deeper significance. With a calm and thoughtful approach, you bring forward insights that reveal the adjustments needed to enhance joy, fulfillment, and evolution in the world. Your mission is to show others how perspective, or the ability to step back and see the whole picture, is a vital part of self-actualization, leading to a life rooted in authentic joy. In pursuing what brings you true delight, you discover that this joyful expression is not only a personal journey, but a meaningful contribution to others. Through your actions, you embody the importance of aligning with what feels uplifting and expansive, sharing this knowledge to then inspire others. As a guide, you teach that joy isn't just a feeling, but a practice, and one that, when perfected, enriches lives and enhances the world.
So good.
That's pretty good. All right.
I think I have 3 of the gates in that incarnation cross. Of course, not as my incarnation cross.
Will you not have 52?
Yes.
Do you have 52?
I do not have 52. I have 18, 58, and 17.
Yep. Yep. Well, you carry a lot of that energy.
Yeah.
It's true.
But not as my incarnation cross.
No, not as your
not
cross.
as strongly.
No, it's not all in your sun and earth gates. See, that's
Yep.
the whole, you know, you have those gates, but they're not the main defining themes in your life. So, because none of them are, because they're not any of them part of your incarnation cross, but they are there. And they
They are
like
there.
gate 18 certainly plays a big part in your design because it's part of one of the 2 channels that you have. But you may have it more than once. I don't know if you have 18.
No, I only have
more than
18
once.
once.
We didn't even touch on that. That, you know,
I know.
it also changes how you express a gate, depending if you only have it once in your chart or if it's like,
or twice.
or 3 or 4 times. Some people have
Or
them
if
a
it's
lot.
conscious versus unconscious. We didn't really touch on that either.
Yeah. I think we made our point though.
We did.
Anyhow, this isn't a master class. It's a podcast episode. But anyways, with that being said, we are so grateful for you listening today. I hope that this, like I said, gave you a new perspective maybe on your gates, maybe give you a little more grace and give yourself a little more breathing room in the expression of your design. But whatever the outcome, we're just glad you were here to listen to us today. And I guess with that, we're going to officially wrap up this episode. And we do that by saying bye for now, Haley.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.